Hi, this is Maggie back at Memory Bound for our Tuesday technique, and this week we're going to do a little fall activity, and again, you know that I love fall. We're going to make some little coasters that you can set out for a fall decoration. We're going to take one stencil and I'm going to show you how to use it in 4 different ways. These coasters are rectangle, they're about a 4x6. And we have them in square, rectangle, and round. I like to use the 4x6 size. So you can cut your paper 4x6 and it will be just a little bit bigger than you need, but that's okay. You take your coaster and take some matte medium, multi-medium matte. This one happens to be Distress Collage medium. I use them interchangeably. Either one will work. And using a paintbrush, just brush it on, not too thin because you want it to stay a little wet while you get that paper on, and then lay that on there like that. And this is small enough that you can just use your hands to press that out. The reason you want to dry it is because we're going to sand the edges, and if it's too wet it will tear. See how I didn't really worry about the paper being too big, because by the time you're done sanding, all that excess paper is just going to fall off. And the 2 reasons why I like to sand these is to get rid of the excess paper and then also to distress it. And when you distress the edges, they also soak the ink in better. And then I like to kind of do the surface across the top to really distress it and make it look like it's part of the coaster. Cut across those corners a little bit. The first one we're going to do is the straight up ink. I'm going to use Distress Oxide. You can use the regular or Distress ink, but I really like the way this oxidizes. I did this one about 24 hours ago, and it's taken 24 hours to oxidize. See how you get kind of a chalky look? It makes a beautiful background. I'm going to start out with red. And you could use the regular blending tool, or you can use the brushes. I'm going to use the brushes today. They really go on very well with the oxide inks. And I just kind of make it go off the edge so it doesn't look like a perfect rectangle. And some people like to tape their stencils down with washi tape, and you can do that too. It goes on very strong looking and you think, oh, it's going to be so bright. But after about 24 hours, it just fades into that background. Isn't that gorgeous? And then you can kind of lay that other side in there just a little bit so that it doesn't look like you ran off the page. And there's the fired brick, and you could just leave that just as is, and it's very pretty. So I rematch it up exactly the way it was, holding it down. And now I'm going to take a little walnut stain. With the Distress Oxide, or the walnut stain, I want it to kind of get a little depth, so I'm just going to kind of come in from the edges with that. I'm going to go over it completely. See how that adds a little depth to it? Isn't that beautiful? Now your next one is Spiced Marmalade. You could use any orange. Again, line it up. The 3rd time, I just kind of did that, just because it just kind of variegates it a little bit without overpowering the other colors. You have 3 colors, and you could go back in and do a little green if you wanted to. But I want to show you how different it looks after it oxidizes a little bit. It does get a little more faded look. Okay, the next technique we're going to do is we're going to use the same stencil, same coaster, only this time we're going to use a little texture paste opaque matte. I'm going to tint it with just a little bit of antique linen, and I'm just going to apply it to my mat. I'm just going to take a little and just start mixing it with that ink. Even if you can't see it, it's there. And see how that's tinting that to be a pretty color. Put a text background paper, and I've already done all the homework. Just kind of start off your coaster just a little bit. And when you lay it, notice I'm working on the back of my palette knife, and you're just going to put it on like frosting. like this. You don't want to go over the edge of your stencil. And once you get it on there, then you can just take the side of your palette knife and scrape it off. You're scraping it off if you cannot see your pattern of your stencil, you've got it too thick. And then you'll always have some of that stuff hanging over the edge. You can just scrape it off. You gotta be a little careful when you're doing this because you don't want to mess up what you've already got. Here's your second background, and this you can either dry with your heat tool or you can just let it dry by itself. And the third technique, I'm going to show you the finished one. This is what we're going for. This is probably my favorite. You use that same texture paste. You do not need to tint it, but you need to work a little fast with this. And I've got this one ready. This is another paper that I've been using. We're going to just put it on there. So this is just that wet layer, and it's a little more textured. This is a little tricky, just getting this little area, but we don't want to leave it blank, so I'm just gonna throw in a partial leaf here. So now we have that on there. It's just like the other one. We didn't tint it, but this time we're gonna do something different. We're gonna take some of this Stupendous Aged Spice Embossing Enamel. It's got lots of fun chunks and lots of different textures. Definitely shake it up before you use it because the heavy stuff kind of settles. And you're going to just pour it right on there while it's still wet. So this looks really pretty just by itself, and we are not finished. But we don't want to burn the texture paste, so we're going to let this dry. Our next technique is going to be the Nouveau Glacier paste, and it just came in, and this is the gold. Very, very pretty going on, and it's even prettier once it dries. Remember, just go over the top like that, lay it on like you're frosting a cake. So thin that when you go to scrape it off, you almost have to use a lighter hand because it will totally scrape off. This comes in a variety of colors, and they're beautiful. It's straight up. Isn't that pretty? Got to get in here and just add a little bit of an edge. I would let this dry on its own. It turns into a very, very shiny gold. Can you see the difference between how it looks now and how it dries? Now those are our 4 techniques. We've got just the Distress Oxide in 3 layers. We've got just plain texture paste, and this can be inked also, and we can go around and ink that. We've got texture paste with embossing powder, and we're going to heat that up in just a little bit. And then we've also got the Nouveau Glacier paste. So 4 different things that you can do with just one stencil and get 4 different looks. This has dried, and we're ready to go back, and we're going to heat set it. And I think you're going to see some magic. The embossing powder has quite a bit of texture anyway, but by adding that texture paste underneath it, it even gives it another dimension. See the gold coming out? I use these as little gifts. So I usually get these little easels and just set them on there. And they make a nice little gift to give someone during the fall season. And what I use to go with these textures is my favorite things, and it's called Fall Friends. And so I used some of the sentiments and stamped them and added some ribbon and some charms. We have these charms here at Memory Bound, and some just got ribbon. Want to make these fun little coasters, stop in, pick up the stamp set, and of course the stencil called Autumn Layering Stencil, and have fun. Thanks for stopping in.